Thank you for your time. I know most people do not enjoy watching long videos, and I promise you I will do my best to keep this focused, but I do need to include quite a bit to make an airtight case. I am only seeking the truth and expect that I am wrong about some details. Hopefully, at least in the main, I am in the ballpark. But I consider this a work in progress. I still have lots of study to do and also look forward to any feedback that will improve on these ideas. With that said, let's jump in. I am convinced that to understand Ezra's eagle, a thorough understanding of Daniel is very important. It is evident to me that Daniel, 2nd Esdras, and the book of Revelation are all tightly bound together. This is good because where things can be shown to be in alignment, they strengthen each other and serve as second witness to each other. And also, if we find things that do not match or that contradict each other, this can raise a red flag to us that we need further study in order to resolve the conflicts. 2nd Esdras itself points us to Daniel to understand Ezra's eagle. In chapter 12, verse 10, the angel gives an interpretation of the eagle. Verse 10, and he said unto me, this is the interpretation of the vision. The eagle whom thou sawest come up from the sea is the kingdom which was seen in the vision of thy brother Daniel, and it was not expounded unto him, therefore now I declare it unto thee. So we know that the eagle represents a kingdom shown to Daniel, and it is a kingdom that was not expounded to Daniel. 2nd Esdras tells us more about the identity of the eagle in chapter 11, starting in verse 39. Verse 39, art not thou it that remainest of the 4 beasts, whom I made to reign in my world, that the end of their times might come through them? And the 4th came and overcame all the beasts that were past, and had power over the world with great fearfulness, and over the whole compass of the earth, and much wicked oppression. And so long time dwelt he upon the earth with deceit. For the earth hast thou not judged with truth. For thou hast afflicted the meek, thou hast hurt the peaceable. Thou hast loved liars, and destroyed the dwellings of them that brought forth fruit, and hast cast down the walls of such as did thee no harm. Therefore is thy wrongful dealing come up unto the highest, and thy pride unto the mighty. And the highest also hath looked upon the proud times, and behold, they are ended, and his abominations are fulfilled. And therefore appear no more, thou eagle, nor thy horrible wings, nor thy wicked feathers, nor thy malicious heads, nor thy hurtful claws, nor all thy vain body, that all the earth may be refreshed, and may return, being delivered from thy violence, and that she may hope for the judgment and mercy of him that made her. The eagle is what remains of the 4 beasts. Since the first 3 beasts were expounded to Daniel, it seems clear that the eagle represents the 4th beast kingdom. Onward to Daniel chapter 2, which is Nebuchadnezzar's dream and the interpretation. In verse 31, thou, O king, sawest, and behold, a great image. The great image, whose brightness was excellent, stood before thee, and the form thereof was terrible. The image's head was of fine gold, his breast and his arms of silver, his belly and his thighs of brass, his legs of iron, his feet part of iron and part of clay. Thou sawest till that a stone was cut out without hands, which smote the image upon his feet that were of iron and clay, and brake them to pieces. Then was the iron, the clay, the brass, the silver, and the gold broken to pieces together, and became like the chaff of the summer threshing floors, and the wind carried them away, that no place was found for them. And the stone that smote the image became a great mountain, and filled the whole earth. This is the dream, and we will tell the interpretation thereof before the king. Thou, O king, art a king of kings, for the God of heaven hath given thee a kingdom, power, and strength, and glory. And wheresoever the children of men dwell, the beasts of the field and the fowls of the heaven, hath he given unto thine hand, and hath made thee ruler over them all. Thou art this head of gold. So Daniel was explicitly told that the head of gold was the kingdom of Babylon. And after thee shall arise another kingdom inferior to thee, and another third kingdom of brass, which shall bear rule over all the earth. The second and third kingdoms are not expounded to Daniel at this time. We only know that they come after the kingdom of Babylon, and shall bear rule over the whole earth. And the fourth kingdom shall be strong as iron, forasmuch as iron breaketh in pieces and subdueth all things, and as iron that breaketh all these, shall it break in pieces and bruise. And whereas thou sawest the feet and toes, part of potter's clay and part of iron, the kingdom shall be divided, but there shall be in it of the strength of the iron, forasmuch as thou sawest the iron mixed with miry clay. And as the toes of the feet were part of iron and part of clay, so the kingdom shall be partly strong and partly broken. And whereas thou sawest iron mixed with miry clay, they shall mingle themselves with the seed of man, but they shall not cleave one to another, even as iron is not mixed with clay. And in the days of these kings shall the God of heaven set up a kingdom which shall never be destroyed, and the kingdom shall not be left to other people, but it shall break in pieces and consume all these kingdoms, and it shall stand forever. Forasmuch as thou sawest that the stone was cut out of the mountain without hands, and that it brake in pieces the iron, the brass, the clay, the silver, and the gold, the great God hath made known to the king what shall come to pass hereafter, and the dream is certain, and the interpretation thereof is sure. So quite a bit is explained about this fourth kingdom, but it also is not explicitly identified. We know that it must last until the stone is cut out of the mountain without hands. We know that it starts out as a strong and unified kingdom, but later gets mixed with miry clay, which makes it weak, and also there will be division within it. The toes are not mentioned in the dream, but are mentioned twice in the interpretation of the dream. Daniel 3, we're moving forward. Daniel 3 is the story of Meshach, Shadrach, and Abednego in the fiery furnace. Daniel 4 is a vision of a great tree, and the interpretation that is given is that it is King Nebuchadnezzar. Daniel 5 is the hand that writes upon the wall, and the interpretation starting in verse 25. And this is the writing that was written: Mene, Mene, Texel, Upharsin. This is the interpretation of the thing. Mene, God hath numbered thy kingdom and finished it. Tekel, thou art weighed in the balances and found wanting. Perez, thy kingdom is divided and given to the Medes and the Persians. Then commanded Belshazzar, and they clothed Daniel with scarlet, and put a chain of gold about his neck, and made a proclamation concerning him, that he should be the third ruler of the kingdom. In that night was Belshazzar, the king of the Chaldeans, slain, and Darius and Media took the kingdom, being about 62 years old. So Daniel 6 is the story of the den of lions. I will say, in what I had just read, it does identify that the Medes and the Persians are going to be the kingdom that follows Babylon. So again, moving forward, Daniel 6 is the story of Daniel and the lion's den. Daniel 7 is Daniel's vision of the four beasts. These appear to correspond to the four kingdoms in Daniel 2. Starting in Daniel 7 verse 4. The first was like a lion, and had eagle's wings. I beheld till the wings thereof were plucked, and it was lifted up from the earth, and made stand upon the feet as a man, and a man's heart was given to it. This appears to correspond again to the head of gold, which is Babylon. The winged lion is an ancient symbol that represents Babylon. In verse 5, and behold another beast, a second, like a bear, and it raised up itself on one side, and it had 3 ribs in the mouth of it between the teeth of it. And they said unto it, Arise, devour much flesh. This appears to be the kingdom of Persia and the Medes. The side that raised itself up was the Persians, the stronger of the two. This appears to correspond to the chest and arms of silver. The 3 ribs in its mouth may represent the 3 prominent kingdoms that were conquered by the Persians, which were Media, the Medes, Lydia, and Babylon. We'll leave a question mark on this for now. In verse 6, after this I beheld, and lo, another like a leopard, which had upon the back of it 4 wings of a fowl. The beast had also 4 heads, and dominion was given to it. This third beast or kingdom seems to represent Greece. A leopard is fitting because of the rapid expansion of the empire under Alexander the Great. Upon his death, the empire was divided among his 4 leading generals, which would represent the 4 heads. And again, we'll leave a question mark on this, although I do feel that to this point, most of what I've said is the widely accepted interpretation. And after this, I saw in the night visions, and behold, a 4th beast, dreadful and terrible and strong exceedingly, and it had great iron teeth. It devoured and brake in pieces, and stamped the residue with the feet of it. And it was diverse from all the beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns. And in verse 8, I considered the horns, and behold, there came up among them another little horn, before whom there were 3 of the first horns plucked up by the roots. And behold, in this horn were eyes like the eyes of a man, and a mouth speaking great things. I beheld till the thrones were cast down, and the Ancient of Days did sit, whose garment was white as snow, and the hair of his head like the pure wool. His throne was like the fiery flame, and his wheels as burning fire. A fiery stream issued and came forth before him. Thousands ministered unto him, and 10,000 times 10,000 stood before him. The judgment was set, and the books were opened. I beheld then, because of the voice of the great words which the horn spake, I beheld even till the beast was slain, and his body destroyed and given to the burning flame. As concerning the rest of the beasts, they had their dominion taken away, yet their lives were prolonged for a season and time. So this 4th beast appears to be the Roman Empire, at least in part. The Roman Empire appears to be the legs of iron. In verse 7, it mentions that this beast was diverse from all the other beasts, and that it had 10 horns. So the previous 3 kingdoms were mostly homogeneous. The Roman Empire was not. Rather, it was a collection of territories and people under the rule of the Roman Empire, but the territories were diverse in terms of language, customs, and religions. So it appears that the 10 kingdoms that rise up out of the Roman Empire are the Saxons, the Franks, Visigoths, Burgundians, Vandals, Lombards, Ostrogoths, Suevi, Alemanni, and Heruli. Constantine called the Council of Nicaea in 318 AD to create a universal church, which is the Catholic Church. And this was done because Christianity was breaking into lots of factions, and he wanted to get everybody together to decide what was going to be the accepted universal ideas, and essentially he wanted to use this to help keep the kingdom together. I believe that at this point is where religion became a major part of the government, and heretics could be punished under the law. And I think that this is the beginning of the feet that were part iron and part miry clay. And again, this is the beginning where those convicted of heresy could be punished under the law. And so what sets them apart is the blending of the state power and the religious authority. In 508 AD, Clovis partnered with the Catholic Church, and he went after the Arian Church, which was the non-Catholics, and that's the Visigoths, and that was in 508 AD. He wiped them out. And then Belisarius went after the Vandals and the Ostrogoths and also wiped them out. So it appears that the Visigoths, the Vandals, and the Ostrogoths are the three horns that were rooted up by the little horn. The boastful things the little horn spake were, at first, the Roman Catholic Church claimed that the Pope spoke for and in behalf of Christ, and at a later time they actually said that he was the literal embodiment of Christ on earth. So in the Third Synod in 538 AD is where the changing of the laws and times comes in, and this is the actual beginning of the Holy Roman Empire. And it says that the little horn rules and persecutes the saints for a time and times and half a time, which is understood to be 3.5 years. And by the calendars of the time, this would be 1260 days. In prophecy, days are often considered as literal years. So if we take 538 AD and add 1260 to it, that brings us to 1798. In 1798, Vatican City was stormed by one of Napoleon's generals, and the rule of the little horn was, if not, it wasn't completely destroyed, of course, but its ability to, try people for heresy, things like that, was ended at this time. In verse 9, the Ancient of Days appears, and that seems to be either Adam or God the Father. In verse 10, the judgment is set by the Ancient of Days and the books opened. This seems to be at the very end of time. In verse 11, due to the boastful things that the little horn spake, the beast is utterly destroyed. And this again is the fourth beast. Verse 12 says that the other three beasts have their dominion taken away, but they are prolonged for a season and a time. So the kingdoms themselves are going to continue, but they are not going to have the world dominance that they had had before. Now in verse 13, I saw in the night visions, and behold, one like the Son of Man came with the clouds of heaven, and came to the Ancient of Days, and they brought him near before him. One like the Son of Man could be the Savior himself. It could also be the end-time servant, the one mighty and strong, or based on the angelic interpretation, it can mean the people of the saints of the Most High. And in verse 14, and there was given him dominion and glory and a kingdom, that all people, nations, and languages should serve him. His dominion is an everlasting dominion, which shall not pass away, and his kingdom that which shall not be destroyed. Verse 15, I, Daniel, was grieved in my spirit in the midst of my body, and the visions of my head troubled me. I came near one of them that stood by, and asked him the truth of all this. So he told me, and made me know the interpretation of the things. These great beasts which are four kings, which shall arise out of the earth. But the saints of the Most High shall take the kingdom, and possess the kingdom forever, even forever and ever. Then I would know the truth of the fourth beast, which was diverse from all the others, exceeding dreadful, whose teeth were of iron, and his nails of brass, which devoured, brake in pieces, and stamped the residue with his feet. And of the 10 horns that were in his head, and of the other which came up, and before whom 3 fell, even of that horn that had eyes and a mouth that spake very great things, whose look was more stout than his fellows. So I beheld, and the same horn made war with the saints, and prevailed against them, until the Ancient of Days came, and judgment was given to the saints of the Most High, and the time came that the saints possessed the kingdom. Thus he said, the fourth beast shall be the fourth kingdom upon earth, which shall be diverse from all kingdoms, and shall devour the whole earth, and shall tread it down, and break it in pieces. And the 10 horns out of this kingdom are 10 kings that shall arise, and another shall arise after them, and he shall be diverse from the first, and he shall subdue 3 kings. And he shall speak great words against the Most High, and shall wear out the saints of the Most High, and think to change times and laws, and they shall be given into his hand until a time and times and the dividing of time. So that's the 1260 days, which I believe is also 1260 years, which covers the entire reign of the Holy Roman Empire. But the judgment shall sit, and they shall take away his dominion, to consume and to destroy it unto the end. And the kingdom and dominion and the greatness of the kingdom under the whole heaven shall be given to the people of the saints of the Most High, whose kingdom is an everlasting kingdom, and all dominions shall serve and obey him. Verse 28, hitherto is the end of the matter. As for me, Daniel, my cogitations much troubled me, and my countenance changed in me, but I kept the matter in my heart. So then, now moving on to Daniel 8, it's very important because previously the first beast was explicitly stated to be Babylon, and in Daniel 8 it is explicitly stated who the second and third beasts are. So in verse 4, I saw the ram pushing westward and northward and southward, so that no beasts might stand before him, neither was there any that could deliver out of his hand. But he did according to his will, and became great. And as I was considering, behold, an he-goat came from the west, on the face of the whole earth, and touched not the ground. And the goat had a notable horn between his eyes. And he came to the ram that had 2 horns, which I had seen standing before the river, and ran unto him in the fury of his power. And I saw him come close to the ram, and he was moved with choler against him, and smote the ram, and brake his 2 horns. And there was no power in the ram to stand before him, but he cast him down to the ground, and stamped upon him. And there was none that could deliver the ram out of his hand. Therefore the he-goat waxed very great, and when he was strong, the great horn was broken, and for it came up 4 notable ones toward the 4 winds of heaven. And the interpretation given in verse 20, the ram which thou sawest having 2 horns are the kings of Media and Persia. And this makes sense, as the Persians came up after the Medes, so they were the latter horn, but they became the stronger of the 2. And so this is also the second beast which was the bear with 3 ribs in his mouth. In verse 21, and the rough goat is the king of Grecia, and the great horn that is between his eyes is the first king. So this is the third beast being explicitly stated as being Greece. The first king is Alexander the Great. Starting at age 23, he defeated the Persians and the Medes, and in 10 short years, he had conquered most of the known world. It is said that Alexander wept, for there were no more worlds to conquer. Now in verse 22, now that being broken, whereas 4 stood up for it, 4 kingdoms shall stand up out of the nation, but not in his power. So when Alexander died, the conquered lands were divided among his 4 generals, Cassander, Lysimachus, Seleucus, and Ptolemy. And so again, these are the 4 heads of the leopard and the 3rd kingdom of Daniel 7. And now going back to verse 9. And out of them that came forth a little horn, which waxed exceeding great toward the south, and toward the east, and toward the pleasant land. And it waxed great, even to the host of heaven. And it cast down some of the host, and of the stars to the ground, and stamped upon them. It is important to note that this little horn is not the little horn that rises up among the 10 horns, but it rises up from the 4 kingdoms under the 4 generals. And jumping forward to the interpretation in verse 23, and in the latter time of their kingdom, that being the kingdom of the 4 generals, transgressors are come to the full, a king of fierce countenance and understanding dark sentences shall stand up. And his power shall be mighty, but not by his own power, and he shall destroy wonderfully, and shall prosper and practice, and shall destroy the mighty and holy people. Verse 25, and through his policy also he shall cause craft to prosper in his hand, and he shall magnify himself in his heart, and by peace shall destroy many. He shall also stand up against the prince of princes, but he shall be broken without hand. So note that this is during the latter times of the 4 generals' kingdom, not a reference to the last days or the end times. And finally, it is important to note that this little horn is not identified, but it seems that Antiochus IV Epiphanes is a good candidate, as he ruled the Seleucid Empire in the final years of the Greek Empire. He was also noted for his persecution of the Jews, who had been treated well by the Seleucid kingdom up to that time. And in Maccabees, he's referred to as the wicked. So it seems like he was not very popular. It is possible that Daniel 8 refers to the end times, but based on the interpretation given, there would have to be war between Media Persia and Greece would have to win and be divided into 4 kingdoms, and at the end of those kingdoms a little horn has to be set up, and that seems like it would have to be a pretty incredible repetition of history. So I do believe that this again refers back to the end of the Greek Empire. I wanted to get Daniel done in this first video, but chapters 11 and 12 have so much to unpack that they are going to have to be a separate video. And then the third video is finally going to get to 2nd Ezra chapters 11 and 12, Ezra's eagle. And I will say that at least up till this point, most of what I understand is not very controversial. I did kind of pick and choose among various interpretations what seemed to be the better fit, but there's already a lot of information out there supporting a lot of what I've said up to this point. But I will say that when we get to Ezra's eagle, I think that I have a lot of information that I'm going to be able to show how it ties in with Daniel and how it matches. And also, I haven't seen anybody that has interpreted it in the way that I have. So that's going to be the big payoff, I hope. And I want to thank you for watching. Let me know your thoughts on this video in the comments. If you think that this was helpful, please like, share, and subscribe, because I really feel like this is important. I'd like to get the word out on this and, hopefully build up some momentum. So by the third video, maybe we have a good viewership. Anyway, if you can, greatly appreciated. I'm not trying to monetize or anything like that. I just want to get as many eyeballs on this as I can. Video 2 will be coming soon.